In the vibrant and bustling African village of Gambiegos, steeped in ancient customs and traditions, lived a young woman named Amiyanga. At 18 years old, she was the youngest child and second daughter of the powerful chieftain, Tomopoza. He ruled the village sternly, firmly set in the ways of the Yandinka tribe. Gambiegos was a place where traditions held strong. Marriages were arranged by fathers at birth, and polygamy was widely accepted. Chief Tomopoza himself had 6 wives. On Amiyanga's 18th birthday, Tomopoza sent word to her betrothed family, summoning them to prepare for the dowry celebration and wedding within 3 days. When he told Amiyanga, she voiced her discontent, as she had many times before, much to her father's dismay and anger. Amiyanga believed marriage should be based on friendship, mutual respect, and love, ideas she formed from books, the internet, and movies. She rejected polygamy and many other customs, which led to severe discipline, ridicule, and harsh treatment from her father and the villagers. As a result of her failure to adhere to the laws and traditions of the village and the tribe, her father decided that she would be held in a secure location and forced to participate in the ceremonies in 3 days. That night, Amiyanga cried bitterly about her situation and decided to call upon the spirits of her ancestors to ask what she should do. She performed the ritual by drawing a circle on the ground of the hut that she was locked in, sat in the middle with 3 candles, painted her face with various cosmetic dressings, and started chanting some mystical unrecognizable words and phrases. After many long moments of this, she became deeply entranced and seemed to have a conversation of sorts with an unseen entity. After a while, she fell over and slept for several hours. Then suddenly, she was jarred awake by some force or entity that had seemingly cast a spell of sleep over the entire village and her captors and summoned her to get up and run away. Amiyanga hesitated at first because she didn't know where she would go, what she would do, where she would stay, or what she would eat. But more importantly, where could she hide from her father's tracking detail where she could not be found? Even though Amiyanga was dealing with all of these thoughts and issues, she found herself stuck and somewhat reluctant about leaving. Finally, she decided to make her escape and took off running like the wind, terrified of what might happen if she were caught. She ran for what seemed like hours until she fell straight down to her knees, totally exhausted, then laid down and fell fast asleep. Amiyanga was startled in the morning by a large group of women who were standing all around her and checking to see if she was alright. She obviously ran a lot longer and farther than she had realized because she was many miles and several towns and villages from her home. The women gave her water and food and asked her who she was, where she was from, and how it was that she happened to be there. Slowly, and after being assured by the women that she was safe and among friends, Amiyanga started to explain what happened, where she was from, and what led to her being there. The most dominant female, Zamana, stood and announced that she was the matriarch and queen of the village, Ranibia, and then proceeded to share her similar story and experience with Amiyanga and the rest of the group of women assembled together. Zamana told her life story and how she ended up in Ranibia and married the king and patriarch, Rolamba. Zamana strongly identified with Amiyanga's situation and assured her that she was very much welcome and was ushered into the village with the blessing of both her and her husband, the king. As time went by, Amiyanga met many people in the village and surrounding areas and learned the ways, customs, and traditions of the village tribe. It was challenging, and she met with a lot of resistance from other women in the village because Amiyanga caught the eyes, heart, and affection of many of the warrior men there. But more than any other, the eldest son of the king and Zamana, Zenaigo, fell madly in love with Amiyanga and asked his father if he could make her his wife. King Rolamba gave his son his blessing, and he proceeded to ask Amiyanga to marry him. She, of course, felt the same way about him and promptly said yes through tears of joy, as she couldn't believe that this was the blessing that her ancestor envisioned for her life and future. That evening, she once again performed a similar ritual with her ancestors as she did before, inquiring about how and if she should share the news of this with her family, as she was terribly worried about what could possibly happen by further evoking her father's wrath. After her ritual, which drained her to exhaustion, she fell fast asleep. When she awoke in the morning, it was to the sound of Zenaigo's voice calling to wake her up and invite her into his father's grand hut to discuss the plans they wanted to make for how to move forward with the ceremonies and wedding. Amiyanga explained her situation back in her village but also wanted to include her family and get the blessing of her father and family. They all decided that no matter what the outcome, they would venture together to Amiyanga's village to share the news and seek the blessing of her father and family. The next day, the king's entire family and entourage set out to Amiyanga's village. Upon arrival, all of Amiyanga's townsfolk were in utter shock and disbelief as they immediately recognized Amiyanga, as everyone thought she had perished when they all awoke from the ancestor spell. They all rushed up to her and bestowed hugs, kisses, and welcoming words and glad tidings to see her and to know that she was alright after several years of her absence. As all of them exchanged pleasantries, common courtesies, and many tales, stories, and concerns, the commotion aroused the camp of Amiyanga's father, the king. The king sent his entourage to inquire about the commotion, only to discover Amiyanga, her husband-to-be, his family, King Rolamba, and his entourage. After explaining the situation and their reason for being there, Amiyanga's father approached with tears in his eyes from a combination of sadness from missing his daughter, relief from knowing that she was okay, anger from being disobeyed, embarrassment about being left with no daughter to present at the ceremony, but jubilation about how well Amiyanga did for herself and her choice of such a fine prince as her husband-to-be. He told his daughter Amiyanga that he was stubborn, selfish, bullheaded, and stupid for putting traditions, rituals, and customs before the happiness and well-being of his youngest and most beautiful daughter. He further explained that Amiyanga's happiness was now all that mattered, and that she, of course, had his blessing, and all of them had a celebration to commemorate the event. The celebration in Gambiegos was unlike any the village had ever seen. The vibrant colors of the traditional garments, the rhythmic beat of the drums, and the joyous dances all blended into a magnificent display of unity and acceptance. The villagers, who once ridiculed Amiyanga for her beliefs, now celebrated her bravery and the love story that defied all odds. As the night went on, the elders shared stories of the past, and the young ones listened with wide eyes, learning the importance of change and compassion. Tomopoza, humbled and wiser, stood up to make an important announcement. He told the gathering that the time had come for Gambiegos to embrace a new era. The old ways, which had caused so much pain and division, would be left behind. From that day forward, the village would honor love, respect, and personal freedom above all else. Marriages would be born out of mutual affection and understanding, and the happiness of the individual would take precedence over outdated customs. The villagers erupted in applause and cheers, their hearts filled with hope for the future. Amiyanga and Zanaigo, standing hand in hand, smiled at each other, knowing that their journey had not only changed their lives but had also paved the way for a brighter tomorrow for everyone in Gambiegos. After this, Amiyanga's father decreed that all of those stringent, outdated traditions, customs, and rituals would no longer be a part of their village's makeup, and they adopted new ones. And so, with hearts full of joy and a future bright with hope, everyone lived happily ever after. The end.